according to your definition, bad, bad, big, the love you would be talking about would be, it would be a cultural programming thing. You know, I love you, but the way we do love in my corner of the world is, you know, we'll slap you, we'll push you around, we'll kick you once in a while, you know, we'll say, you know, we'll call you names, but that's the way we do it, all right? So it's okay, it's love. But is it really? Is it really love? Can we agree that this is love? That this is a form of love that is so tainted by cultural, traditions or forms? But love advocates more love and puts down the opposite of love. It looks to me that is where we are going with this conversation. That one of the conditions of true love is that it must, perforce, create more love. That if my child is taking a choice in life that is going to take them to a place that is not of love, the loving thing for me to do is to direct them otherwise. Whatever is necessary as far as what I need to tell them or do for them or do to them, that they should not go down a path that is of hate, of violence, or that is destructive, or that is counter to love. Sometimes I can love somebody without actually acting upon it, mainly because I'm restrained or constrained in some manner that I cannot do or say anything, and all I can have is that feeling, that, or let me put it better if you want, that intention, that loving intention towards that person. But that is by your definition, if I understand you correctly, that would be excluded from love. You're saying that's just feelings, it is not love. Now, while I, like you, agree, I'm very pragmatic myself, and if it is something that is not realized in this world as action or as something actually that can be seen and shared, I have trouble with. But in this case, in the case of the definition of love, I tend to maybe disagree there. Where does that feeling come from? Well, it's the precursor to all action. All action is preceded, must be preceded by an intention to do that action. Unless, of course, you're talking about tripping on a rock or tripping on a sidewalk and landing on your face. Now, of course, nobody wants to do that, and nobody intends to do that. And you would be right in arguing that kind of action of tripping and falling on one's face is not preceded by intention. And I agree with you. But I don't think we're dealing with that in this case. Love is a very intentional, or must be a very intentional feeling or action. And so the intention must be there. And therefore, because it always must be there before any action takes place, any loving action takes place, then it is part of that love. The intention to love is part of the love. One must voluntarily, willingly, consciously intend to love someone. And we have not really touched about this. The need for human beings to love, not the need to feel loved, which is a separate thing. In fact, that in itself actually is not really about love. It's a need. It's something like needing to eat, but the need to actually to love someone, something, whatever, and that's something that we haven't really touched on, and that's really maybe the second side of the coin, which is love. The second side of the hidden treasure. This constant search, this running around the planet of these little beings called humans, these little beings that chase after it day and night, and yet, do they really know what they're looking for? Do we even know what is this love that we're running around looking for? Is it passion? Is it attachment? Is it are we looking for pity? What are we looking for? Because different people have different definitions, and that's the motivation for what we're doing here tonight in this room. Most people usually say, "Oh, you need to be loved," but I don't think people need to be loved. I don't think that. I think they ask for it. It looks like we do, but I think what we really want is to love, because to be loved is something that has nothing to do with you. It has to do. I'm talking at a very existential. I'm talking about way beyond the darkest night. I'm talking about in the depths of loneliness. What I think the only thing that can keep company in that depth is not the love of mom or dad or husband or lover or sister or friend. I think in that darkest night, the warmth must come from you being able to love. I think that person, even in the loneliest of lonelinesses, is not truly lonely, because he can just take out, or she can just take out their own heart, and it shines brightly with love. It does not necessarily need a subject. You do not necessarily need someone else to love. That core, that seed, it's good. It flourishes into a plant when there is someone to love, but the core is there. A loving person is a loving person, period. Just like a loving God is a loving God, period. Okay, I understand you a little better, but I still have to come back and again to the feeling versus action dichotomy here. I'm sure you understood, of course, exactly what I meant by the intention that must precede any action, especially an action as important and as crucial as love. And I also understand your point now about religion and love. Well, religion, everything else, really, any concept that people have in general, but specifically this concept of love. And let's outline, of course, for everybody here that we are here talking about love. We are not necessarily loving, we're just talking about love, which means we're trying to define love. Now, what that means is, in the end, it is so in the end, at the end of this evening, hopefully, if we do end up with something, it's not going to be love. It's going to be a definition of love. And that's, of course, if we're successful. More successful than, well, the rest of humanity has been so far. Because everybody's, that's probably the most confusing term in all human affairs, love. Everybody knows what hatred is. Everybody knows what war is. Everybody more or less understands killing. But few people understand loving. Well, I mean, they have their own definition. And so what I mean by this is that we are here trying to arrive at what is true love. What is the definition that we can agree on? So hard to find is that it doesn't always look like what people think love should look like, and that just adds to the confusion. You know, they might see two people screaming at each other and they think, well, that's a lot of hate, but not necessarily. It could be, but not necessarily. They'll see a mom spanking her little her 4 or 5 year old and think, well, that mom is no good. But not necessarily, unless you know the context. You know the intention. What is the intention of this mom or dad or husband or wife or ruler or king or neighbor? What is their intention? Where do they stem from? And that's actually big, where that intention business must be part of love. That internal thing that happens inside our hearts or minds is extremely important. In fact, in light of what we just said, of how confusing looks and actions can be, it's actually the most important thing. Because from the outwardly, many people can look at the same action and think, well, that's hate, no, that's love, no, that's good, that's bad. But if you look upon the intention of the person, then there should be no confusion anymore. If we could, of course, and you're right, we can't. I agree with you to a certain extent, but the problem with that definition, that ultimately consequences is what matters. The problem with that is that it assumes that humans, and therefore